My mother handed my sister the keys to my apartment and told me, smiling, that she needed it more than I did. 3 locks changed, one lease broken, a grown woman standing in my kitchen wearing my bathrobe, holding my mail like it was hers to open. My mother's voice, warm as church coffee, saying the sentence I will hear for the rest of my life. And me, saying nothing. Not one word. Just turning around, walking down the stairs, and making a phone call to a man whose name was already on a piece of paper my family had never once bothered to read. They would find out what that paper said at a party, in front of 30 people, with a sheriff standing on the porch. But that comes later. Let me back up. My name is Marissa Hale. I'm 29. I did not scream. I did not beg. That's not how I was built, and it's not how this went. 2 days before my mother handed away my apartment, I was standing at a gate in the Dayton airport with a rolling suitcase between my knees and a hospital vendor on the phone, watching my boarding group get called and letting it go by. Read me the invoice date again, I said. March 14th, the vendor rep said. Ma'am, we really do need to close this out today. That invoice bills for a colonoscopy prep kit, I said. 40 units, at $4,200. Your contract rate for that kit is $2,950 flat, and I have the amendment in front of me right now. There was a pause. The kind of pause I hear about 4 times a week and never get tired of. I'll have to check with billing, she said. Check with billing, I said. I'll wait. I did not raise my voice. I never do. That's the whole trick of my job, auditing contracts for a hospital network that spans 3 cities. Nobody remembers the auditor who yelled. They remember the one who was right. My group got called for boarding. I stayed on the phone, watching the line shrink until the woman came back and said, "You're correct. We'll issue a credit." "Thank you," I said, and hung up, and got on the plane last, and that was Tuesday. I tell you that not because it matters what a prep kit costs. I tell you because that is who I am. I don't get loud. I get precise. It has saved my employer around $190,000 a year for 3 years running. It did not save my apartment. On my shelf at home, next to my grandfather's reading glasses, there is a photograph of a man named Walton Voss, standing in front of a triplex on Sturgis Avenue in Mansfield, with his hand flat on the brick like he was checking its pulse. He is smiling the way he always smiled, like he'd already figured out something you hadn't gotten to yet. Every January 3rd, a white envelope shows up in my mailbox, Cole and Voss Law Offices printed in small gray letters in the corner. I have never opened one in front of anyone. I take it inside, I put it in the bottom drawer of my desk, under a stack of old bank statements, and I lock the drawer. My mother has asked me twice what's in those envelopes. I've told her twice that it's nothing, just paperwork from when Grandpa's estate closed out. It was not nothing, but she didn't need to know that yet, and honestly, some days I forgot how much it mattered myself. My grandfather died 3 years ago in April, in his sleep, in the same house on Sturgis Avenue where he'd raised my mother and her sister. He left behind a will everybody read at the lawyer's office, and a second document nobody but me and a man named Preston Cole ever laid eyes on. I didn't understand what that second document meant for a long time. I just knew Grandpa had told me, near the end, holding my hand with fingers that had gone thin as pencils, "Don't let her hand away what's yours." I thought he meant it in the general sense. Fathers say things like that. I didn't know he meant it literally, on a specific Tuesday, in a specific kitchen. That Tuesday came 2 days after the airport. I flew back into Mansfield a little after 6 in the evening. Tired the particular way 3 days of Dayton hotel coffee makes you tired, and I drove straight to Sturgis Avenue instead of home, because my flight had been delayed and I wanted my own bed more than my own dinner. South Park was doing what South Park does in early June. Porch lights coming on one by one, somebody's sprinkler ticking against a fence 2 doors down. I love that street. I bought into that building specifically because it was 3 blocks from where I grew up, close enough to walk to my mother's house on a Sunday, far enough that I had a door I could close. My key didn't turn. I tried it twice, thinking I'd grabbed the wrong one, though I only have the one apartment key on that ring. I knocked. Footsteps came down the hall, unhurried, and the door opened, and there was my sister Chelsea, in my bathrobe, holding a stack of mail with my name on every piece of it. "Oh," she said. "Hey." Behind her, my mother appeared, wiping her hands on a dish towel like she'd been in my kitchen long enough to already be cooking in it. "Marissa," my mother said, smiling the smile she uses at church functions, the one that means she has already decided how this conversation is going to go and is simply waiting for me to catch up. "We didn't think you'd be back until Thursday." "My key doesn't work," I said. "I had the locks changed," she said, like she was telling me she'd watered a plant. "Chelsea's moving in. She needs it more than you do, honey. You're gone half the month anyway, and she's got nowhere." I stood on the landing where I have stood 1,000 times, holding a suitcase I'd wheeled through 2 airports, looking at a woman wearing my robe in an apartment that had my name on the mailbox downstairs. And I felt something in my chest go very still and very cold, the way a pond does right before it's ready to hold your weight. "She needs it more than you," my mother said again, like repeating it made it truer. I did not cry. I did not argue. I have learned, the hard way, arguing gives a lie oxygen, and this particular lie did not need any help breathing. I looked at Chelsea, who had the decency to at least not meet my eyes, and I looked at my mother, who met mine just fine, and I said, "Okay." That was the whole sentence. "Okay." My mother blinked like she'd been braced for a fight and didn't know what to do with a door that didn't push back. "I'll get your things boxed up," she said, recovering fast, already moving past me toward what used to be my hallway closet. "Chelsea can use most of the furniture, it just makes sense, but I'll have your clothes ready by the weekend." "Mom." Chelsea's voice behind her, thin. "Maybe we should talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," my mother said, not even turning around. "It's family." Marissa understands. I did not go inside. I did not ask to see my own bedroom one more time. I turned, and I walked back down the stairs I have walked down 1,000 times, and I sat on the bottom step in the June evening with my suitcase still in my hand, and I took out my phone. My mother, upstairs, called down after me, cheerful as anything. "There's a good tenant number for the place over on Glessner if you need somewhere short-term. I can give it to you." I didn't answer that either. What she didn't know, standing in my kitchen wearing my robe and her Daughter of the Year certainty, was that she'd never had the right to hand anyone those keys in the first place. Not legally. Not for one single day since my grandfather signed a document with Preston Cole 3 years before he died, naming me the only person alive who was allowed to live there. She was about to find that out. Just not from me. Not yet. I scrolled to a contact I'd saved under a plain last name, no photo, the way you save a number you hope you'll never actually need. Cole. It rang twice. "Cole and Voss," said a voice, dry, unhurried, a voice that has read 1,000 documents out loud in rooms exactly like the one my mother was standing in right now. "This is Preston." "Mr. Cole," I said, keeping my voice level, the way I do with vendors, the way I do with everyone, "it's Marissa Hale. I need to ask you something about my grandfather's trust." There was a small pause on the line, the kind that told me he already knew, somehow, that this call was coming eventually. 3 years of January envelopes had been building to exactly this moment, and neither one of us had said so out loud until right now. "Marissa," he said, "tell me what happened." So I told him. The changed locks, my sister in my robe. My mother's 4 words, said twice, like a gift she was proud of. I told him about the $38,000 she'd mentioned almost as an afterthought while she was already halfway into my closet. muttering that Chelsea's boutique still owed the bank that much and the girl needed a break somewhere, and how strange it was that my mother had said it at all, like the number had just slipped out sideways while she was thinking about something else entirely. Preston Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he said the only thing that mattered. Marissa, that apartment was never your mother's to give away. It was never even yours, not the way you think. Your grandfather set it up so no one could ever do to you what your mother did to her own sister 30 years ago over that cabin. I think it's time you and I sat down, and I read you exactly what he wrote. I looked up at the lit windows of my own building, at a shape moving behind my kitchen curtains that used to be my shape, and for the first time all evening, something in me that had gone very still and very cold started, quietly, to move again. When can you meet? I said. It wasn't a question. Some things stop being questions the moment you already know the answer. Cole's office sat above a shuttered dry cleaner on Park Avenue West, the kind of building where the stairs creak in a way that tells you the wood is older than everybody using it. I got there at 9 the next morning, before the hospital system even opened its help desk, because I hadn't slept, and there wasn't a single reason to pretend otherwise. He was already at his desk. Gray cardigan, glasses pushed up on his head, a manila folder sitting square in the middle of the blotter like he'd set it there for me before I even knocked. "Sit down, Marissa," he said. "You look like you drove here on no coffee." I did. "There's a pot in the hall. Get some. This conversation deserves you awake." I got the coffee. I sat down. He opened the folder. "Your grandfather came to me 3 years before he passed," Cole said. "Not with his will. That came later, and everybody saw that one. This came first, and nobody saw it but him and me." He turned the folder around so I could read it myself. "The Walton Voss Irrevocable Trust," I read out loud. Slow, like reading it slow would make it more real. "Established and funded the same month," Cole said. "The triplex on Sturgis Avenue is inside it. Has been since before you signed your first lease there. You didn't buy that apartment, Marissa. Your grandfather already owned it free and clear, and he moved it into a trust that names you the sole lifetime beneficiary. Not your mother, not Chelsea, you, and you're the trustee. I am, which means for 3 years, every January, I've mailed you an accounting, rent roll, taxes paid, minor repairs, standard trustee paperwork. I assumed you were opening them." I looked at my coffee. I put them in a drawer. Cole almost smiled. "Your grandfather did the same thing with his own father's letters for a decade. Guess it runs in the family, not opening things that scare you a little. It didn't scare me. I thought it was closed-out estate stuff. Nothing left to decide." "There was plenty left to decide," he said. "He just decided it for you, in advance, so nobody else could." I set the coffee down so I wouldn't spill it. Why would he need to do that? Why would anyone need an irrevocable trust just to leave someone an apartment? Cole leaned back. The chair complained under him the way old chairs do. "You know about the cabin," he said. It wasn't a question either. I know there was a cabin. On the lake. I know my mother and my Aunt Renee stopped speaking over it sometime before I was born. Your mother talked your grandfather into signing that cabin over to her favorite nephew, Cole said. Told him Renee didn't need it, that the boy would use it more, that it just made sense. Same words, more or less, she used on you 2 days ago. Your grandfather signed it because she wore him down over one long dinner, and by the time he understood what he'd done, Renee had already stopped taking his calls. He carried that for the rest of his life. He told me once it was the worst hour of paperwork he ever put his name to. I sat with that a second. So he built a trust so she couldn't do it again. He built a trust so she couldn't do it again, Cole said. To you specifically. He used your name in the founding document, Marissa, not my granddaughter, your full name. He wanted no room for anybody to argue who it was for. Something in my chest that had been cold since the porch step finally had somewhere to go. He left something else, Cole said, and reached toward a second, thinner folder under the first. Then he stopped, hand flat on it, and didn't slide it over. What? I said. A letter? Sealed. He wrote it the same week he signed the trust and told me only to give it to you if this exact thing ever happened. Locks changed. Somebody handed your home to somebody else. Cole looked at me. I want you to have solid ground under your feet before you read it. Right now you've got my word and a folder. Let's get you something a courthouse stamped. That, I understood. My whole job runs on the difference between somebody telling you a number and a document proving it. The county recorder, I said. Exactly where I'd go, Cole said. Pull the deed yourself. See the trust's name on it in the same font as every other recorded transfer in Richland County. Nobody can tell you it's not real once you're holding a certified copy with your own hands. I drove to the Richland County Recorder's office on Park Avenue East that same morning, walked up to the counter, and asked for a copy of the deed on the Sturgis Avenue triplex. The clerk didn't even blink. She typed, she printed, she stamped it, and she slid 3 pages across the counter like she handed out truth for a living. Grantor, Walton E. Voss. Grantee, Walton Voss Irrevocable Trust. Recorded 3 years and 2 months ago, 4 months before he died. My mother's name wasn't anywhere on it. Chelsea's name wasn't anywhere on it. Mine wasn't either, not directly, which had confused me until Cole explained that a trust holds title in its own name, and I hold the right to live there for as long as I'm alive, which in plain language means the same thing with better locks. I stood in that recorder's office and read it twice, standing up, because I didn't trust myself to read it sitting down without my hands shaking a little. I called Cole from the parking lot. I have it, I said. Good, he said. Now come back. There's more, and I'd rather you hear it from documents than from me. Back at his office, he'd pulled a second box, older, the cardboard soft at the corners. This came out of your grandfather's file storage when we closed the estate. I kept it because some of it's trust adjacent, and some of it's just family business I didn't think was mine to hand around. Given what your mother did this week, I think it's yours now. Inside were bank statements, not Grandpa's. My parents' joint retirement account, the one my father, Wayne, has had through his job at the plant for 26 years. Somebody, at some point, must have added Grandpa as a document custodian back when he helped them refinance the house, and the old paperwork trail had just kept quietly filing copies here for years out of habit. 14 months of withdrawals. Not huge ones. $1,800 here, $2,400 there. A $4,000 pull 2 months ago, labeled in the little memo line banks give you, boutique. Add it up, Cole said, quiet. I did the math out loud because that's how I keep myself steady. That's over $61,000 pulled out of a retirement account in 14 months. 61.4 to be exact, far as I can total it, Cole said. There's a promissory note in there too. Your mother co-signed a small business loan for Chelsea's boutique 2 years back. $38,000, at a rate that's not kind to anybody. Chelsea's missed enough payments that your mother's been covering the gap out of that retirement account so the bank doesn't call the loan due. Does my father know? Judging by whose signature's on the retirement paperwork and whose isn't? No, Cole said. I'd guess Wayne thinks that account is exactly where he left it. I sat there with $61,400 laid out in a stranger's tidy handwriting, and I understood, finally, why my mother needed Chelsea in that apartment so badly she'd break a lease and lie to my face to make it happen. If Chelsea couldn't live free, she couldn't make her boutique payment and her rent both. If Chelsea couldn't make the boutique payment, the loan defaulted. If the loan defaulted, the bank came looking for the cosigner, and my mother's whole quiet 14-month rescue mission collapsed in front of my father in one phone call. She hadn't done this to punish me. She'd done it because she was drowning, and I looked like the nearest thing solid enough to stand on. That should have made it easier to forgive. It didn't, not yet. It just made it easier to understand, which is a different thing entirely. What do I do with this? I said. For now, nothing dramatic, Cole said. You let me start the paperwork on an unlawful detainer since your sister's occupying trust property without authorization. That takes a little time to file correctly. Meanwhile, you go on living your life. Don't tip your hand. My phone buzzed on his desk. A text from Chelsea. First one she'd sent me in probably a month. Bright with exclamation points the way she does when she wants something to look more festive than it is. Housewarming at our place next Saturday, 2 p.m. Come celebrate with us. No hard feelings. I hope I turned the phone so Cole could see it. He read it, and something shifted behind his glasses. Calm the way a man gets calm right before he does the thing he's been trained his whole career to do. Saturday, he said. That's convenient. Convenient how? Convenient because unlawful detainer filings move slower than anybody wants, except when a sheriff's department already has a scheduled civil matter and a judge willing to sign off fast on a clean, well-documented trust violation, Cole said. I've filed faster than this before, Marissa, when the paperwork's this clean. This paperwork is this clean. You're saying you could have it ready by Saturday. I'm saying your sister just told us exactly where she's going to be and when, and that she's inviting witnesses. Cole closed the folder, unhurried, like he was closing out a Tuesday and not building the exact shape of the worst afternoon of my mother's year. Some people build their own bad luck for you, Marissa. All you have to do is not get in the way of it. Cole slid the second folder back toward himself, then stopped and pushed it across to me instead. You've got your ground, he said. Deeds recorded. Read it. The envelope inside was thinner than I expected. My grandfather's handwriting, my full name across the front. Marissa Ann Hale. Not a nickname, not sweetheart. My whole name, like he wanted a judge to be able to read it someday if it ever came to that. I opened it there, in his office, because I didn't trust myself to wait until I got home. Marissa, it started. If you're reading this, your mother did the thing I built this trust to stop. 3 sentences. No throat clearing. Your mother took the cabin from her own sister when she was 26 years old. She told me Renee didn't need it. She told me Danny would use it more. I believed her, and I signed, and I lost my other daughter over one bad dinner. I won't do that to you twice removed. This place is yours, not hers to give, not hers to lend, yours. Don't let her hand away what's yours. Under that, just his name, Walton E. Voss, and a date 3 years back, the same month the trust was filed. I read it twice. Cole didn't say anything while I did. He just poured himself coffee and let me sit with it. He knew, I said finally. He knew this exact thing would happen. He didn't know the details, Cole said. He knew your mother. Those turned out to be close enough. I folded the letter along its original creases and put it back in the envelope. My hands were steady. That surprised me more than the letter did. I want to see her again before Saturday, I said. Once? Normal. Like nothing's wrong. Cole looked at me over his glasses. Why? Because right now she thinks I'm just sad, I said. I want to know what else she says when she thinks that's all I am. He almost smiled again. Your grandfather used to do exactly that. Sit quiet at a table and let people talk themselves into a corner. He capped his pen. Sunday, not Saturday. Give the filing room to finish before you're back in a room with her. Sunday dinner at my parents' house started the way it always does, with my mother pretending the kitchen isn't on fire and my father pretending not to notice she's exhausted. Wayne Hale has worked at the same plant for 26 years, and if you ask him how the retirement account is doing, he'll tell you fine, because he genuinely believes it, because nobody's ever shown him different. Marissa, honey, sit, my mother said, already pulling out the chair I've sat in since I was 9. I'm glad you came. I know Saturday's going to be a nice fresh start for everybody. Smells good, I said. That was true. I didn't have to fake that part. Chelsea wasn't there yet. My mother filled the silence the way she does, talking about the party, the caterer she'd booked for 40 people, the little charcuterie boards she wanted on every table. That sounds like a lot for a housewarming, I said, just to see what she'd give me. Well, it's a big deal for her, my mother said. New place, fresh start, the boutique's finally turning a corner too. I told her, once this next quarter clears, that loan's practically nothing. Wayne looked up from his plate. What loan? My mother's smile didn't move, but something behind her eyes did. The little business loan, Wayne. For the shop. You know about that. I know she took one out, Wayne said. Didn't know it was still hanging over her. It's fine, my mother said. It's handled. Handled how? I asked. Just a question. The kind you'd ask about anyone's shop, not your sister's. There are payment plans for that sort of thing, my mother said, and reached for the salad bowl, like reaching for it settled the subject. 38,000's a lot to just handle, I said. The room went quiet in a specific way. Wayne set his fork down. 38,000? He said. My mother's face did something fast, a correction she couldn't quite finish making. It's not that much anymore. She's paid some down. How much has she paid down? Wayne said. Not loud, just very still, the way a man gets when he's doing math he didn't know he needed to do. Wayne, we don't need to do this at the table. How much, Deborah? I watched my mother's hands. She does this thing when she's cornered, presses her palms flat on the table like she's steadying a boat. She's missed a few payments, my mother said. 1,100 a month? She's missed 3. It's not the end of the world. I've been helping cover the gap so the bank doesn't call the whole thing due. Helping how? Wayne said. It doesn't matter how. Deborah. She looked at him, and for 1 second I saw the exact same look she'd had on my porch, braced for a fight she thought she could outlast. There's a little cushion in the retirement account, she said. I moved some of it, temporarily. Wayne didn't say anything for a moment. When he did, his voice had gone somewhere flatter than I'd ever heard it. How much is some? It's temporary, Wayne. How much? I already knew the number. I sat there and let her say it out loud because she needed to hear herself say it as much as he did. A little over 60,000, my mother said. 61, maybe. Wayne put both hands flat on the table, the same gesture she does, like it runs in families the same way lying does. That account had $340,000 in it 2 years ago, he said. I checked it at Christmas. It was down. You told me the market was down. The market was also down, my mother said, which wasn't an answer, and everyone at the table knew it wasn't an answer, including her. I didn't say anything. I ate a bite of the chicken because it really was good, and because Cole had told me exactly what to do with an evening like this. Nothing dramatic. Just watch it land. I need to see that account, Wayne said. Tonight. Wayne, it's Sunday. I don't care what day it is, Deborah. My mother looked at me then, like I might be some kind of exit. Marissa, tell your father he's overreacting. I set my fork down. I'm not going to do that. Something in her face slipped, just for a second, the polished part cracking enough to show what was underneath. Then it was back, smoothed over, hostess again. Well, I'm sure it'll all work out, she said, to no one, and got up to check on a casserole that didn't need checking. I left before dessert. I told them I had an early flight Monday, which was true, Columbus again, a vendor contract with a $4,200 discrepancy. I still needed to close out before the auditors above me asked why it was open. I hugged my father at the door. He held on a second longer than usual. You okay? He asked me, quiet, like he already suspected there was more going on than a missing retirement number. I will be, I said. That was the truest thing I said all night. I called Cole from the car before I even pulled out of the driveway. She said it out loud, I told him. In front of my dad. 61,000. Good, Cole said. Now he's not finding out for the first time on Saturday. One less person we have to manage in that room. You think he'll come to the party? I think he's going to want answers before Saturday, and your mother's going to spend the next 6 days trying to keep him calm instead of watching what I'm doing, Cole said. That works in our favor. Grief and chaos don't leave much room for lawyers. Is everything set for Saturday? Filing's in, he said. Judge signed the order this morning. Clean unlawful detainer. Trust as plaintiff. Chelsea Hale as unauthorized occupant. Sheriff's Civil Division has a 2:15 slot. Locksmiths confirmed for 2. $95 filing fee, $60 for service, $65 for county recording on the order once it's executed. All of it's smaller than 1 month of what your mother's been pulling out of that account. And the party starts at 2. The party starts at 2, Cole said, which means everybody important is already standing in that living room when the doorbell rings the second time. I sat in the driveway a minute after we hung up, engine off, my parents' porch light throwing that same yellow square across the lawn it always has since I was a kid. 6 days out from a party I hadn't wanted an invitation to in the first place. I thought about the letter in my bag. Don't let her hand away what's yours. I'm not, I said, out loud, to nobody, in an empty car in my parents' driveway. I'm really not. My father called Monday morning before 8, which never happens. Dad? I went to the bank, Wayne said, before work, before anybody could stop me. And there's a home equity line, Marissa, $22,000, against the house. I sat down on the edge of my bed, phone pressed hard to my ear. Since when? 18 months ago, he said. I signed something. I remember signing something. Your mother said it was for a new roof quote, paperwork the bank needed on file in case we moved forward. His voice cracked, just slightly, right in the middle of the sentence. We never got the roof. Where'd the money go? Boutique, he said. Same as the rest. I checked the transfer history myself, standing right there at the counter, because I didn't trust myself to remember it wrong later. I did the math out loud, the way I do. $61,000 from retirement, 22 more from the house. That's $83,000, Dad. 83.4, he said. I asked the teller to print it. I wanted the paper. Good, I thought. Get the paper. Always get the paper. I'm getting my own lawyer, Wayne said. Not Cole. Somebody who works for me, not the trust. That's smart, I said. I should have asked more questions 2 years ago. You trusted her, I said. That's not a crime. Feels like one, he said, and hung up before I could tell him it wasn't his to carry. I flew to Columbus that afternoon anyway. A vendor had billed the hospital network twice for the same imaging equipment lease, $4,200, filed under 2 different purchase order numbers 11 days apart. I caught it before I even reached the gate, on hold with their billing office, calm the whole time. I don't get loud, I told the woman on the phone. I get precise. She found the duplicate in 6 minutes and refunded it in 9. That's the job. Numbers don't lie, even when people do. My mother called Wednesday. I let it ring twice before I picked up because Cole had told me to keep sounding like a woman still nursing a bruise, not a woman holding a deed. Marissa, honey. Her voice had that syrupy softness she uses when she wants something smoothed over fast. I heard you and your father had a talk. We did. He's upset with me. He found out about a lot of money, Mom. It's temporary, she said. Same word as Sunday, like repeating it made it true. Chelsea's boutique is turning a corner. Once the spring line sells through, I put it all back. Nobody has to know anything more than they already do. Nobody has to know. I sat with that a second. Outside, spoken sweet. Inside, I was doing arithmetic on how many people already knew, and how few of them were her. I just don't want Saturday ruined, she said. That's all I'm asking. One nice afternoon. Can you give her that? I can come Saturday, I said, which was true. That's my girl. Relief flooded her voice. Easy, cheap. I knew you'd come around. Family's family. Family's family. I used to hear that phrase and feel warm. Now I heard it the way you hear a check that's about to bounce. Pretty on the surface, nothing behind it. Love you, Mom, I said, because it cost me nothing and told her nothing. Love you more, she said, and I let her have the last word, since it was the last free thing she was going to get from me. Thursday, Chelsea added me to a family group text I'd muted 8 months ago. Aunt Carol was in it, my cousin Britt, even Wayne's sister from Ontario who'd flown down for the party and needed the address. Sturgis Avenue, Chelsea wrote, dropping a pin. Housewarming and boutique relaunch, 2 p.m. New spring line debuts in the living room, ribbon and everything. So excited to finally have our own place, no more living out of boxes. Lol, Aunt Carol replied with 3 heart emojis. Britt asked if she should bring wine. Then, a few messages down, Chelsea again. This one clearly not meant for me to take calmly, clearly meant to land. Grateful some people in this family know how to be generous instead of holding grudges over an apartment they weren't even using. I read it twice. Holding a grudge. Over an apartment I wasn't even using. Grudge. I turned that word over like a coin. As if 3 years of rent I'd paid on time, every month, meant nothing next to 4 months of her sitting in it for free. As if wanting my own key back was the ugly thing in the room, and handing away someone else's home to save your own skin was generosity. I didn't reply in the thread. I screenshotted it and sent it straight to Cole instead. He called 10 minutes later. This is good, he said, which was not what I expected him to say about my sister publicly gloating. Good how? Time-stamped, in writing, admitting the party's also a business event, Cole said. A boutique relaunch inside a property she doesn't hold title to isn't just an unauthorized occupant anymore. It's unauthorized commercial use of trust property. Judge likes clean stacking like that. So it helps. It helps, he said. Everything your family puts in writing this week helps. Keep screenshotting. She called it a grudge, I said. Me wanting my own apartment back. People who take things they shouldn't, Cole said, usually need the person they took it from to look small. Makes the taking easier to live with. I sat with that a minute. It fit her too well not to notice. Filing's locked, Cole said. Judge's order is signed, dated, sitting in a folder on my desk right now. Sheriff's Civil Division has Saturday, 2:15, confirmed twice. Locksmith's on standby at 2. I want you there at 1:45, parked down the block, not in front. You don't knock. You don't do anything until I tell you to. What do I do until then? Live your week, he said. Go to Columbus. Catch your discrepancies. Let your mother think Saturday's a party. It is a party, I said. Just not the one she thinks. Cole actually laughed at that, short and dry. Your grandfather would have liked that line. I thought about him then, the way I keep doing since the letter. Sitting at his desk in the corner of his study where I did homework as a kid, sneaking me butterscotch candy from the drawer while my mother wasn't looking. He knew what she was capable of before I was old enough to spell my own name. He built a wall around one apartment on Sturgis Avenue and waited 3 years past his own death for someone to test it. I drove home Thursday night past the triplex, slow, the way you drive past a house you used to live in. Chelsea's lights were on in my old windows. A ladder leaned against the porch rail, half finished. Streamers looped over one rung like she'd started decorating and gotten distracted. There was a banner rolled up on the steps, not yet hung. Happy New Beginnings, it said. Gold letters on white ribbon, the kind you order online and pay extra to rush. I didn't stop the car. I didn't need to see any more than that. Friday morning, I packed an overnight bag for Columbus, one more short trip before Saturday, a contract audit that couldn't wait for family drama to resolve itself. I locked my apartment door out of habit, forgetting for half a second that it wasn't my door to lock anymore. Not on paper, not yet. The thought didn't sting the way it had 3 weeks ago. It just sat there, flat. A fact waiting on other facts to catch up to it. At the gate in Dayton, waiting to board, my phone buzzed. Cole. "One more thing before tomorrow," he said. "I want you to know exactly what happens if any part of Saturday goes sideways. If your mother panics and tries to physically block the locksmith, that becomes an obstruction issue, and the sheriff handles it, not you. If Chelsea refuses to open the door, the order lets them enter regardless. You don't touch a single lock. You don't say a single word to either of them until I've read the clause out loud. Can you do that?" "I've done harder things quietly," I said. "I know," Cole said. "That's why I picked up the phone 3 weeks ago and didn't hang up until we had a filing. They called my flight. I stood up, bag over my shoulder, and looked out the window at the tarmac, gray under a flat Ohio sky. "See you tomorrow," I said. 1:45, Cole said. Not a minute later, not a minute early. I hung up and got on the plane, and for the first time in 3 weeks, the thing in my chest that had felt like dread for so long finally felt like something closer to ready. The gate agent called boarding before I could finish the thought, so I let it sit and got on the plane. Columbus took 4 hours. A supply contract for surgical trays, billed at 2 different rates to 2 different departments, 41 cents apart per unit, times 11,000 units. Nobody notices 41 cents. I notice 41 cents. I flagged it, wrote up the discrepancy, and had it kicked back to the vendor before my rental car was even due back. "I don't get loud," I told the compliance officer on the phone when she asked how I'd caught something that small. "I get precise." She laughed like I'd made a joke. I hadn't. I was back in Mansfield by 6, tired in that specific way you get from airports, not sleepy, just worn thin at the edges. Cole called while I was still in the rental return line. "Can you come by the office tonight?" he said. "Before tomorrow." "Now?" "Now's better than tomorrow morning," he said. "There's something your grandfather left that I think you should have in your hands before you walk into that party, not after." I didn't ask what. I just said I'd be there in 20 minutes, and I was. Cole Voss Law Offices sat above a dry cleaner on Park Avenue West, a narrow staircase, frosted glass on the door with gold lettering that needed repainting. I'd been there twice before in 3 years, both times to sign something I didn't fully understand yet. Cole met me at the top of the stairs himself, no receptionist this late, just him in shirt sleeves with his tie loosened. "Sit," he said, and I did, in the same leather chair across from his desk, the one with a worn patch on the left arm from 3 years of other people's crises. He set a banker's box on the desk between us. Not the file I'd seen before. A different one, older, the cardboard gone soft at the corners. "These are the January envelopes," he said. "Every one you never opened." I looked at them. 8 of them, thick, white, the same law firm letterhead peeking through each one's little glassine window. 2 more than I'd expected. I'd only been locking one a year in my drawer since I moved into Sturgis Avenue, but there they all were, going back further than that. "Open them," Cole said. "All of them. Tonight, if you can stand it." I opened the oldest first. My hands weren't steady, which annoyed me because I don't do unsteady. Inside was an annual trustee accounting. Property taxes paid on a Sturgis Avenue triplex, $1,140 a year. Insurance renewed, $612. A furnace replacement in the second year, $2,800. Paid quietly out of a trust reserve account I hadn't known existed. A reserve that, according to the most recent envelope, still held $62,000. He funded a reserve, I said, on top of the apartment itself. He funded it generously, Cole said. Enough to carry the building through a bad decade if it ever needed carrying. He didn't want you ever calling your mother for a repair. I sat there with 8 years of quiet math laid out on a desk, taxes and insurance, and one new furnace. All of it paid by a dead man's foresight while I was busy flying to Dayton and Columbus thinking I owned nothing but a lease. "There's one more thing," Cole said, and reached into a drawer, not the box. A single envelope, sealed, cream-colored, older than the others, the paper gone slightly yellow at the fold. My name was on the front in handwriting I recognized before I even registered why. Slanted, heavy on the downstrokes. His hand. Walton's hand. "He wrote this the year he set up the trust," Cole said. "Told me to hold it and only give it to you if the day ever came that someone tried to take the apartment out from under you." He was very specific about that condition. "He knew," I said. "He knew your mother," Cole said. "Better than any of us, probably." "Go ahead, read it." I broke the seal. My hands were unsteady again, and this time I let them be. "Marissa, if you're reading this, then someone tried to take what's yours, and I already know who. I watched your mother do this once before, to her own sister, over a cabin on Pleasant Hill Lake that our family had for 30 years. Deborah decided Carol didn't deserve it anymore, decided it out loud at a Thanksgiving table, and by spring the locks were changed and Carol wasn't allowed back on the property her name was on the deed for. Nobody stopped her. I didn't stop her. I told myself it wasn't my fight. I won't make that mistake twice. You are not like her. You never asked me for anything. Not once. Not even when you should have. That's exactly why I built this the way I did. Not a gift she could talk you into sharing. Not a house she could stand in and call fair. A trust, with my name on it and Cole's hand on it, so that no one alive could hand away what was never theirs to give. Don't let her hand away what's yours. Not because it's an apartment, because it's the last thing I get to give you, and I'd like it to still be yours when I'm gone. I love you. I always did more than I said out loud. Walton, I read it twice. The second time out loud, low, mostly for myself, and Cole let me, sitting quiet across the desk with his hands folded like he was giving a courtroom the silence it needed. "Carol," I said finally, "my mother's sister." "The cabin. Before your time," Cole said. "He told me the story once, the day we drew up the trust. Took him 20 minutes and he still couldn't finish it without stopping twice. Nobody ever told me any of that. Nobody was supposed to have to," Cole said. "That's the whole point of the letter. He built you a wall so you'd never need the story." I folded it back along its original creases and held it in my lap, careful, the way you hold something you already know you're going to keep for the rest of your life. My phone buzzed on the desk between us. Deborah. Cole glanced at it, then at me. "Answer it if you want. I'll step out." "Stay," I said, and put it on speaker, low. "Marissa, honey, I'm glad I caught you." My mother's voice had that bright, rushed quality it gets when she's already decided how a conversation is going to go before she starts it. "I want to make tomorrow easy on everybody. No hard feelings hanging over the day." "Okay," I said. I had Chelsea's lawyer friend draw something up. Real simple. Just a little quitclaim, transferring your interest in the apartment over to her, clean and official, so there's no confusion down the road about who's renting where. You just need to sign it and get it notarized. I can bring a notary stamp myself. I know a girl at the bank. I looked at Cole. He didn't move, didn't react, just watched me the way you'd watch weather. "My interest," I said. "Your name's not even on anything, sweetheart. I checked," my mother said. "Light, certain. It's more of a formality. For everyone's peace of mind." "I'll look at it tomorrow," I said. "Perfect. Relief again, cheap and immediate, same as always. Bring it signed if you can, or we'll do it right there at the party. No big deal either way. Love you. Drive safe." She hung up before I could tell her I already had. I set the phone down. "She wants a signature that doesn't exist," I said. "She wants a document that looks like consent," Cole said. "In case anyone ever asks how Chelsea ended up in that apartment. It's not for you. It's for her, 6 months from now, if this ever gets ugly enough to need paperwork. She's already building her excuse. She's been building excuses for 2 years, Cole said. This is just the first one you're getting to see before it's finished. I looked down at the letter in my lap, then at the 8 envelopes still sitting open on his desk, tax records and reserve balances, and a dead man's quiet decade of paying for a life I hadn't known needed paying for. Tomorrow at 2:15, I said. Tomorrow at 2:15, Cole said. You don't sign anything tonight. You don't sign anything tomorrow. You don't need to. The only signature that matters on that apartment has been on file at the county recorder's office for 3 years. I drove home with the letter on the passenger seat, belted in like it was something that could be thrown from the car in an accident and needed protecting more than I did. Sturgis Avenue was dark when I passed it. My old windows lit up gold behind Chelsea's new curtains, that banner still rolled up on the porch rail, waiting for morning. Saturday came in gray, the kind of Ohio sky that can't decide between rain and just sitting there being heavy. I was up before my alarm, staring at the ceiling, running through Cole's instructions like a checklist I already had memorized. Park down the block, not in front, 145. Don't touch a lock. Don't say a word until he reads it. I dressed plain. Jeans, a gray sweater, nothing that said event. This wasn't my party. I wasn't dressing for it. Walton's letter went into my bag, folded inside a stiff envelope so it wouldn't crease more than it already had. I don't know why I brought it. I just knew I wasn't leaving it behind. I drove to Sturgis Avenue at 1:30, slow, the long way around, past the elementary school and the block with the boarded-up video store nobody's torn down yet. South Park always looks a little tired on a cloudy day. Today it looked almost pretty, porches strung with balloons 2 doors down from mine, cars already lining the curb. I parked 4 houses back, engine off, and watched. Aunt Carol's Buick pulled up first, Carol climbing out in a floral dress with a gift bag the size of a toddler. Britt behind her, phone already up, filming the porch like it was a red carpet. Wayne's sister from Ontario arrived by rideshare, dragging a wheeled suitcase she clearly meant to leave overnight. And there was Wayne. He stood off to the side of the porch in a collared shirt that looked new, hands in his pockets, not talking to anyone. My father has never been a big talker at parties, but this was different. He kept looking at his phone, then putting it away, then checking it again. A man waiting for a call he already suspected wasn't good news. I thought about the retirement account. 14 months of it, according to Cole, quietly bleeding out to cover a boutique that hadn't turned a profit since it opened. Wayne didn't know that yet. I wondered how much longer that would hold. Chelsea's boutique inventory had already arrived. I watched 2 guys in matching polo shirts carry racks in through the front door. Plastic-wrapped dresses swinging on hangers, boxes stacked 3 high on a hand truck. 1 box tipped, and a guy caught it before it hit the ground, cussed under his breath, kept walking. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, then a follow-up from Cole's actual contact. New stock just arrived, $6,200 per delivery manifest, Cole wrote. Consignment terms, non-refundable once inside the property. Judge should hear that too. Adds up fast, doesn't it? I stared at that number a second. $6,200 of dresses, walking into an apartment that was never Chelsea's to fill. Deborah appeared on the porch in a cream blouse, waving people up the steps like she was hosting at the Ritz. Careful on that bottom step, it's still a little uneven, she called out, cheerful, to nobody in particular. She'd always had that voice for company, warm and a little too loud, like she was performing being a mother instead of being one. I watched her hug Carol, hold the hug 2 seconds too long, the kind of hug that says, look how close we are now. No cabin, no history, nothing between us. Carol didn't know about the cabin. I did. A banner had gone up sometime that morning. Happy New Beginnings, gold on white, strung between the porch posts, exactly where it had sat rolled up 2 nights before. I checked the time. 1:51. My phone rang. Cole. You in position? He said. 4 houses back, I said. I can see the porch. Good. Sheriff's civil unit is running 2 minutes behind, nothing dramatic, just traffic on Trimble Road. Locksmiths parked 1 street over, waiting on my signal. A pause. How's it look? Full house, I said. New inventory just went in. $6,200 of it, according to your text. Noted, Cole said. Add it to the pile. My dad's here, I said. He looks like he already knows something's wrong. Cole didn't answer right away. Sometimes people know before they let themselves know, he said finally. Doesn't mean he knows what. You think he'll be okay? I think your father's about to find out his wife's been protecting one daughter by lying to him for over a year, Cole said. That's not something I can make okay, but it's something he deserves to know regardless of how today goes. I watched Wayne check his phone one more time and slide it back into his pocket, jaw tight. There's something else, Cole said. I want you to hear it from me before you hear it from anyone in that house. I had my paralegal pull the boutique's loan file this morning. Courtesy call to a contact at the bank, nothing improper, all public once it's in default review. Payments 31 days late as of yesterday. Bank sent a notice to the co-signer Thursday. Deborah, I said. Deborah, Cole said. She's had it 4 days and hasn't told anyone. Not Wayne, not Chelsea, probably not even herself, not really. That landed somewhere under my ribs. She was standing on that porch right now, waving people up the steps, a banner over her head that said New Beginnings, while a bank letter sat somewhere in her purse threatening the only retirement she and Wayne had left. So the party's not just for Chelsea, I said. It's a performance. For the bank. For Wayne. For everybody who might start asking questions. That's about the size of it, Cole said. People throw parties to convince a room something's fine. Usually means it isn't. I looked at the porch again. Brit filming. Carol laughing at something Deborah said. The gold letters catching the gray afternoon light like they were trying too hard to shine in weather that didn't want to cooperate. 1:58, Cole said. Sheriff just texted. They're 2 minutes out, turning onto Sturgis now. I want you to stay in the car until I wave you up. Not before. I'm not moving, I said. I know, Cole said. You're good at that, sitting still while everyone around you scrambles. Your grandfather used to say the same thing about you when you were a kid. Said you were the only one in that family who could watch a room instead of needing to be watched by it. I hadn't heard that before. It didn't surprise me, coming from him. Down the street, a white sedan turned the corner, unmarked, moving slow, the kind of slow that isn't casual. Behind it, a panel van with a magnetic sign on the door I couldn't quite read from 4 houses back, but I didn't need to. I knew what it said. That him? I said. That's the locksmith, Cole said. Sheriff's right behind, separate car, always separate car, so nobody says the county sent muscle for a civil matter. It's paperwork with a badge attached. That's all it is. I watched the sedan ease to the curb 2 houses down from the party, hazards clicking on. A deputy stepped out, unhurried, adjusting his belt, glancing once toward the porch, and then away, like he'd done this 100 times, and none of them had ever needed to be dramatic. On the porch, Deborah was still talking, still waving people up the steps, still smiling that bright, certain smile of a woman who thought she had 4 more hours before anyone came looking. She had about 4 minutes. Marissa, Cole said, voice even. When I wave, you come up slow, you stand behind me, and you let me do every bit of the talking until I tell you otherwise. Can you give me that? You've asked me that 3 times now, I said. I'll probably ask a 4th, Cole said. This is the part people usually can't help themselves on. I don't think you're most people, but I like to be sure. I looked past him, through the windshield, past the balloons and the banner and my father standing alone at the edge of a porch that used to be my whole quiet life, waiting on a phone call he didn't want to get. "I've got nothing to say to her," I said. "Not one word. I already used all my words up on that porch 3 weeks ago." "Good," Cole said. "Then let the paper do it this time." The deputy started walking toward the house, folder in hand. The locksmith stepped out of the van behind him, toolbox at his side, unhurried, like a man arriving to fix a lock and nothing more, because as far as anyone on that porch knew, that was exactly what he was. I put my hand on the door handle and waited for Cole's signal, my heart steady in a way it hadn't been in 3 weeks, watching my mother laugh at something Carol said, still smiling, still certain, still counting on 4 more hours she was never going to get. My phone buzzed once. Cole's signal. "Now," he said. Slow. Behind me. Not one word. I got out of the car. My legs felt fine, steadier than I expected. The deputy was already at the bottom of the steps, folder open in his hand. He looked up at the porch, found Deborah in the cream blouse, and said something too quiet for me to hear from the sidewalk. Deborah's smile didn't drop right away. It just froze there, like she hadn't caught up to the sentence yet. "I'm sorry, is there a problem, officer?" she said, loud, bright, company voice. "Deputy," he said, "Civil Division. I'm looking for a Chelsea Hale." Britt lowered her phone an inch. Carol stopped mid-laugh. The whole porch went still in that way a room goes still right before somebody understands something. Chelsea stepped out from behind the boutique racks in the doorway, a garment bag still over one arm. "That's me. I have a notice for you," the deputy said. "Unlawful detainer. You're being asked to vacate the premises at this address." "Vacate," Chelsea repeated, like the word didn't fit in her mouth. "This is my house. My mom gave me the keys. I just served the paperwork, ma'am," he said. "The details are all in there." He held it out. She didn't take it. Deborah did, snatching it like she could stop the words on the page just by holding them tighter. "This has to be a mistake," Deborah said. "This apartment doesn't have a lease. There's no landlord to file this." "I don't understand." "Says right there who filed it," the deputy said. "Not unkind, just factual. Trustee of record." Deborah's eyes dropped to the page. I watched her read the name. Her face didn't crumble. Not yet. It just went very still, the way a face goes still when a person is doing fast math in their head and not liking any of the answers. "Preston Cole," she said, quiet now. "Who's Preston Cole?" Britt said. "Phone back up, because of course it was." "He's Grandpa's lawyer," Chelsea said, looking at Deborah. "Isn't he?" "Mom, what is this?" Deborah didn't answer. She was still staring at the paper like it might change if she looked hard enough. Wayne's phone rang. He'd been standing off to the side the whole time, arms crossed, watching this unfold like a man watching weather roll in over a field he couldn't do anything about. He looked at the screen, and something in his shoulders dropped. "I have to take this," he said, to nobody, and stepped off the porch onto the grass, phone to his ear. "This is Wayne." I couldn't hear the other end. I didn't need to. I watched his free hand go up to rub the back of his neck, the exact gesture my father makes when he's hearing a number he doesn't want. "When did this happen?" he said. Then, after a pause, quieter. 14 months. Deborah's head turned toward him so fast her earring caught the porch light. "Wayne," she said. "Wayne, not now. They're saying the account's been drawn down since last year," he said, still on the phone, not looking at her. "I need somebody to explain that to me, because I sure didn't authorize it." "Wayne, please," Deborah said, and for the first time all afternoon her voice cracked out of its bright hostess register into something smaller. Carol looked between them, gift bag still in her hand, a guest realizing she'd walked into somebody else's storm. "Deborah, what is going on?" Nothing, Deborah said. It's a misunderstanding. Everything's fine. It doesn't look fine, Carol said. I stood at the bottom of the steps, behind Cole the way I'd been told, and I didn't say anything at all. I didn't have to. 2 years of quiet were finally doing their own work. Chelsea still hadn't moved. She was looking at the notice in her mother's hand, like it might bite her if she touched it. Mom, she said, whose name is on this apartment? It doesn't matter whose name, Deborah said, too fast. I told you, you needed it more, and that's still true. None of this changes that. It says right here, Chelsea said, snatching the page now, reading it herself. Walton Voss Irrevocable Trust. Trustee, Preston Cole. She looked up. Grandpa's dead, Mom. How is his name on this? Because he never let it go, Deborah said. And there it was, the first true thing she'd said all day, out loud, in front of everybody. He never let go of anything with that girl, me. Standing 8 feet away, and she still said it like I wasn't there to hear it. A car door shut behind me. I didn't turn around. I knew the sound of it, the same tidy click I'd heard 3 times already that week. Deborah, Cole said, walking up the front path, briefcase in hand. Calm the way a man is calm when he's rehearsed this in his head 100 times, and it's finally going exactly the way he pictured it. I'd like a word, if you don't mind, in front of everyone, since everyone's already here for it. Deborah turned. Whatever composure she'd been holding on to slipped another notch when she saw him, like his face alone confirmed something she'd been hoping was still avoidable. Preston, she said, this is a private family party. It is, Cole said, and I'm sorry to interrupt it, but you served notice on your own daughter today that she needed to sign away rights she doesn't have, and you handed keys to a property you were never authorized to hand to anyone. That makes this exactly my business. You don't understand the situation, Deborah said. I understand it better than you'd like, Cole said. I've understood it for 3 years. Wayne had ended his call. He was walking back toward the porch now, slow, phone still in his hand, staring at his wife like he was seeing her from a distance for the first time in a long marriage. Deborah, he said. What's he talking about? Not now, Wayne. You just told a deputy this was a misunderstanding, Wayne said. And I just got off the phone with a bank asking me why our retirement account is missing money I never touched. So no, not now isn't good enough anymore. The guests had gone quiet in that way a party goes quiet when everyone's still holding a paper plate, but nobody's eating off it. Britt had stopped filming the porch and started filming Deborah instead, phone low at her hip like she thought nobody would notice. Cole set his briefcase down on the bottom step. He didn't open it yet. There's a document, he said, to the whole porch now, not just to Deborah. It was recorded 3 years ago at the county recorder's office, and it says exactly who owns this apartment, and it isn't anybody standing on this porch right now. Preston, Deborah said, and her voice had gone thin, stripped all the way down to something that sounded almost like the woman under the hostess voice. Please, not like this. Not in front of everyone. You did this in front of everyone, Cole said. The invitations went out with the same address on them. I'm only finishing what you started. He looked past her then, to Chelsea, who was still holding the notice in both hands like it had gotten heavier since she picked it up. I'm sorry, he said to her, and he sounded like he meant it. None of this is really about you. It never was. He reached for the clasp on his briefcase. I stood at the bottom of the steps and watched my mother's face while he did it, and for the first time in 3 weeks, I didn't feel anything close to small. Cole opened the briefcase. He pulled out a slim folder, county seal stamped on the corner, and held it up so the whole porch could see it. This is the recorded deed, he said. Filed 3 years ago. I'll read the relevant line and then I'll answer questions. Not before. Deborah's hand shot out. Preston, please. He didn't hand it to her. He read it himself. Slow, clear. The voice of a man who'd read wills to grieving families for 30 years and knew exactly how loud to be. Title held in trust, for the sole lifetime benefit of Marissa Ann Hale. Trustee, Preston Cole, Esquire, of Cole and Voss. Nobody on that porch said anything for a second. Then Britt said it out loud, like she needed to hear it in her own voice to believe it. Marissa's name. This whole time, Cole said. Deborah's face had gone the color of the banner behind her. White. Gold letters over her head, happy new beginnings, and her mouth working like she was trying to find a sentence that would fix this. Your father wanted her to have it, Cole said, not unkindly. He set it up so nobody could hand it away. Not you, not anyone. He never told me that, Deborah said. He didn't have to tell you, Cole said. That's what a trust is for. Chelsea still had the notice in her hand. She looked at it, then at her mother, then at the racks of dresses lined up in the doorway behind her like a store that had never once belonged there. So none of this was mine, she said. Not 1 square foot of it. Chelsea, honey, Deborah started. Don't honey me. Chelsea's voice cracked right down the middle. You told me to move my whole life in here. You told me it was a gift. It was going to be, Deborah said. I was going to fix it. I was going to talk to Marissa. I was going to explain. Explain what? Wayne said. He hadn't raised his voice yet. He raised it now. Explain the retirement account, he said. Explain 14 months. Explain why I just got a call from a bank teller I've known for 6 years, sounding like she felt sorry for me. Wayne, not here. You keep saying that. His jaw was tight, and his hands, and I realized I'd never once seen my father truly angry, not in 29 years, and here it was, quiet and awful on a stranger's front lawn. Not here, not now, not in front of everyone. When, Deborah? When was the good time? Carol had backed up 2 steps, gift bag still looped over her wrist, eyes darting between them like she was watching a car accident she couldn't look away from and couldn't help either. $61,700, Wayne said. He wasn't shouting. That was almost worse. That's what's gone. Bank said you'd been moving it in pieces, small enough nobody'd flag it. 1,100 here, 2,000 there. 14 months of it. Deborah's mouth opened. Nothing came out. For the boutique, Wayne said. Am I right? The loan, the one you co-signed and never told me about. I was going to tell you once it turned around, Deborah said, and her voice had gone thin and childish, the voice of somebody caught, not somebody sorry yet. Chelsea just needed a little more time. The store just needed one good season. 38,000, Cole said quietly, and everybody turned to look at him. That's the original loan. 61.7 is what's gone from the retirement account trying to service it. The bank's default notice went to you 4 days ago, Deborah. You haven't told your husband. You haven't told your daughter. You didn't tell anyone until a deputy showed up at a party. How do you know that? Deborah said. Because it's public once it's in default review, Cole said. I told your daughter this would surface regardless of how today went. I meant it. Chelsea was staring at her mother now with an expression I hadn't seen on her since we were kids. Since the year she broke Mom's good vase and blamed it on me, and I took the blame because I didn't know yet that some people will let you. So I wasn't getting a home, Chelsea said. I was collateral. Free rent so I wouldn't fall further behind on a loan you never told me you were bleeding your own retirement to cover. That's not, Deborah stopped. Start it again. I love you. Both of you. Everything I did because I love you. You handed away something that was never yours to give, Wayne said, to cover a debt you never told me about, and you dressed the whole thing up as new beginnings. He looked at the banner over her head like it had personally offended him. Whose beginning, Deborah? Because it sure wasn't mine. Britt still had her phone up. I noticed Cole notice it too, a flick of his eyes, filing it away the way he filed everything away. Quiet, patient, useful later. Deborah turned to me then. First time all afternoon, she'd looked at me straight on. "You could stop this," she said. "Preston listens to you. Tell him this doesn't need to go any further. We're family, Marissa. Families work things out." I thought about the key that hadn't turned. The banner rolled up 2 nights early. 14 months of silence dressed as devotion. "I already worked it out," I said. 3 weeks ago. On that porch. You just weren't listening." Cole closed the folder before Deborah could reach for it. "There's a hearing," he said, to the whole group now, calm as a man reading a weather report. "Probate court, 8 days out, to confirm the trust's standing on record, since apparently that's now in question for some people here. I'll read the rest of it there. All of it. Including a letter Walton left specifically for this moment, which I have not read aloud to anyone yet, including Marissa. That landed on me harder than I expected. I hadn't known there was more." "A letter," Chelsea said. "Your grandfather wrote one when he set the trust up," Cole said. "Sealed. For a day like this one, I'll bring it to the hearing." He looked at Deborah. "You're welcome to attend. I'd encourage it, honestly. Some things are easier heard than imagined." Deborah didn't answer. She was staring at the notice still in Chelsea's hand like it might rearrange itself if she waited long enough. Carol set her gift bag down on the porch rail, quiet, like she didn't want the sound of it landing to draw any more attention. "I think I'm going to head out," she said, to no one specifically. Nobody stopped her. She was down the steps and across the lawn before the screen door even finished swinging behind her. The locksmith, who'd been standing off to the side the whole time with his toolbox at his feet, cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said to Chelsea, gentle, like he did this more often than people would guess. "I do need to get into the unit. Court order says today." Chelsea looked at the door behind her, dresses on their racks, boxes stacked 3 high, $6,200 of somebody else's optimism sitting in a hallway that wasn't hers. "How long do I have?" she said. "Notice says 72 hours to remove personal property," the deputy said. "After that, county handles it." Chelsea's eyes filled up fast, the way they always had since she was small, quick to the surface and just as quick to look for somebody else to blame for putting them there. She looked at Deborah. "You did this," she said. "Not Marissa. Not the lawyer. You." She turned and went back inside to start pulling dresses off the racks, and after a second, Britt lowered her phone and followed her in, and it was just Deborah standing alone under a banner that had stopped meaning anything the second Cole opened that folder. Wayne didn't go after Deborah. He came down the steps instead, toward me, moving slow, like a man testing ice. 8 days, he said quietly, once he was close enough that only I could hear it. "You think I should be there? At the hearing?" "I think you should hear whatever's in that letter," I said. "I think you've earned that much." He nodded once and looked back at the house, at his wife standing very still under gold letters that said something she clearly didn't believe anymore either. "I didn't know," he said, "about any of it. The account, the loan, your key not turning 3 weeks ago." His voice caught. "I should have asked more questions a long time before today." "You're asking them now," I said. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't close. But it was the first true thing my father had said to me in longer than I wanted to admit. And for the moment, on that lawn, with the party folding in on itself behind him, it was enough to hold on to until the hearing came. 3 weeks earlier, when my key didn't turn, I'd made a promise to myself, standing on that same kind of porch. I don't get loud. I get precise. I kept that promise on the lawn. I kept it walking to my car. I kept it the whole quiet drive back to my own place, the one nobody could hand away twice. Cole called me 2 days later. Not about the hearing, about the file. "I want you to see something," he said. before the courtroom does. His office sat on Park Avenue West, second floor, above a shoe repair shop that had been there longer than either of us. I'd been in that office exactly twice before, both times to sign something I barely understood. This time he had a banker's box open on the conference table, lid off, and a stack of white envelopes lined up like dominoes. "You know these," he said. I did. Every January 3rd, one had shown up at my door. I never opened them. I locked them in a drawer, told myself it was just trust paperwork, something to deal with later. 14 of them, I think, by then. Maybe more. "Annual trustee accounting," Cole said, "required by the terms. I send you a copy every year whether you read it or not." He slid one across the table, already opened, tabs marking 3 pages. "This is the one from 2 years ago. Read the 3rd page." I read it. Then I read it again, slower, because the first time through, the number didn't seem real. "She asked you to dissolve it," I said. "She asked me 3 times," Cole said. "Once the year before your grandfather passed. Once the year after. Once again 18 months ago, right around the time the boutique loan came due for its first real payment." He tapped the page. "Each time, in writing, citing the exact same reason, that Chelsea needed stability more than you did. Same words, same sentence almost. She'd used it on me on a porch like it just occurred to her that day. She'd been saying it to a lawyer for 3 years. "Why didn't you tell me?" I said. "Because your grandfather's instructions were specific," Cole said. "I was not to involve you until there was a real threat to the asset. A request I could deny wasn't a threat. Somebody actually taking the keys was." So he expected this. "He expected exactly this," Cole said. "He told me once, sitting right where you're sitting, that Deborah wasn't a bad woman. She just couldn't stand watching one daughter get something the other one didn't." He closed the box halfway, like even he needed a second before going on. "He said she did it once already, a long time before you were born. A cabin up near Kelly's Island his own father left the 2 sisters jointly. Deborah talked her sister into signing off, told her it made more sense for the family, and then put the deed in the name of Deborah's favorite nephew inside of a year. Did the sister ever get it back?" "No," Cole said. "She stopped speaking to Deborah instead. Died still not speaking to her, matter of fact." He looked at me steady. "Your grandfather watched that happen from a folding chair at a Thanksgiving table and never forgot it. When you were born, he told me he wasn't going to sit in a folding chair twice." I thought about the framed photo on my shelf. Walton Voss squinting into the sun outside this same building, the year before he got sick. I'd dusted around that photo 100 times without once asking myself why he'd set up something this careful for a granddaughter who was, 26 when he died, 29 now. He'd built a wall around one apartment 3 years before he needed to, because he already knew exactly who'd come looking for the gate. "There's more," Cole said, and pulled a second folder loose. "The retirement account. I had a colleague pull the public default filing this morning, since it's part of the loan record now." He set it in front of me. 61,700 is what's gone, but look at the pattern. I looked. Small withdrawals, like Wayne said. 1,100, 2,000, sometimes just 600, spread out over 14 months. Never round numbers, never the same amount twice in a row. "That's not panic," I said. "That's somebody who knew exactly how to stay under a flag." "That's somebody who's done this before, in smaller ways, her whole life," Cole said. "Your mother isn't sloppy, Marissa. She's careful. She just isn't honest. Those aren't the same thing, and people confuse them constantly." My phone rang while the folder was still open on the table. Chelsea's name on the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail. I answered instead, because I don't get loud and I don't run either. "Marissa." Her voice was wrecked, thick like she'd been crying for a while already. "Please, I know you're mad. I know I don't deserve this call. But I have 72 hours, and I don't have anywhere else to put $6,000 of inventory. That's not something I can fix, I said. You could talk to the lawyer. Ask for more time. He listens to you. He doesn't work for me, Chelsea. He works for a document our grandfather wrote before either of us knew any of this was coming. This isn't fair, she said. And there it was, the same line she'd used since she was 9 years old and lost a swim meet to a girl with better form. I didn't do anything. I just moved in where Mom told me to move in. I know, I said, and I meant it, mostly. I'm not angry at you for that part. Then help me. I can't hand you something that was never mine to hand, I said. That's the whole problem, Chelsea. That's been the problem this entire time. She was quiet for a second, and I heard something behind her. A rack wheel squeaking over a wood floor, boxes probably, dresses coming down off hangers into bins. Did you know, she said, quieter now, the whole time, about the trust. Did you always know it wasn't really about you and me? No, I said. I found the deed the same week you did. I just didn't scream about it on a lawn. Must be nice, she said, being the one who never has to scream. And she hung up before I could answer that, which was probably for the best, because I didn't have an answer that would have helped either of us. Cole watched me set the phone down. She's not wrong that it isn't fair, he said. None of it's fair. Fair was never really on the table. Legal was. When's the bank calling the loan? I asked. Formally, any day now, he said. The default review closes this week. Once it does, they can call the balance due in full, or force a settlement, or take the boutique's remaining assets against it. My guess, given the accounts already stripped, they'll want the boutique's inventory and equipment before anything else. And Wayne. Wayne's name isn't on the loan, Cole said. But his name's on that retirement account, same as hers. He's going to spend a long time working out what he can still salvage, and it won't be through me. That part isn't mine to fix either. I looked at the stack of envelopes still sitting there, 14 Januaries I'd locked away without reading, and thought about how much I could have known sooner if I'd just once opened one. Then I thought about what Walton must have known, sitting in that folding chair decades ago, watching his own daughter smile at her sister the exact way Deborah had smiled at me on that porch. There's a letter, I said. You said he left one. For me. For the hearing, Cole said. I want it read where it can't be argued with afterward. On the record, in front of a judge, in front of her, if she comes. He closed the folder, squared its edges against the table like he was already rehearsing how he'd present it. You'll hear it soon enough. I promise you that. I nodded, and for once I didn't push. Some things, I was starting to understand, needed the right room to land in, not just the first available minute. I'd waited 3 weeks already. I could wait a little longer for the one thing my grandfather had written specifically for me. The call came from Cole on a Tuesday morning, before I'd even poured coffee. She hired her own attorney, he said. No hello. Filed a motion yesterday, contesting the trust. On what grounds? Undue influence, he said, and soundness of mind. She's arguing your grandfather wasn't competent when he signed the amendment naming you sole beneficiary. That I pressured a sick old man into cutting his own daughter out. I sat down at my kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg I kept meaning to fix. He signed that 3 years before he got sick, Preston. I know that. You know that. The filing doesn't care. His voice stayed even, but I could hear something under it. Something close to anger held on a short leash. It buys her time. Maybe delays the hearing, maybe not. Either way, now we're proving a dead man's mind instead of just reading his words. Can she win that? No, Cole said, but she can make it ugly trying. I thought about Walton signing papers in that office above the shoe repair shop, sharp as anything, telling Cole about a folding chair and a cabin on Kelly's Island. Not a confused man. A man keeping score. She's desperate, I said. She's out of moves, Cole said. This is what that looks like. He told me the judge would likely fold the motion into the same hearing rather than push the date, since the timeline was already tight with the bank's default review closing. 8 days had already become 6. I didn't feel relief at that. I felt the floor tilt a little, the way it does right before something lands. Chelsea showed up at my building 2 evenings later, unannounced, the boxes from the boutique apparently gone from Sturgis Avenue and stacked somewhere else now, because I didn't ask and she didn't say. I buzzed her up mostly out of habit. Some part of me still checked on her the way you check a bruise, pressing it just to see if it still hurts. She stood in my doorway in a coat that used to be mine sophomore year, and I remembered handing it down to her like that was just what sisters did. I need to tell you something before the hearing, she said, so it doesn't feel like an ambush. Okay. Mom's lawyer asked me to testify about Grandpa, about how he was toward the end. He wasn't confused, Chelsea. You know that. I know, she said, and her voice cracked on it. But she asked me to say he got forgetful, repeated himself. Made me feel like a good granddaughter for saying yes, like I was just helping smooth something over, not lying. She looked at the floor. I said I'd think about it. Did you agree? I don't know yet, she said. I have nowhere to live, Marissa. My boyfriend's letting me crash on his couch until I figure it out, and Mom keeps calling saying if I just help her with this one thing, she can fix the loan, fix everything, and I can move back into the boutique like nothing happened. Nothing's going back to how it was, I said. Not the apartment, not the boutique. Nothing. I know that too, she said, quieter now. I just don't know how to say no to her. I never have. I looked at my sister standing in a coat that still smelled a little like my old apartment, whatever detergent Mom used on everything back when we were kids, and I felt something soften in me that I didn't expect to feel that week. You don't owe her a lie, I said. Not even to keep a couch. Easy for you to say. You've got somewhere to stand. I've got somewhere to stand because I didn't lie for anybody, I said. Not even when it would have been easier. She didn't answer that. She just nodded once, the way you nod when you're not agreeing, just done arguing, and let herself back out into the hallway. Wayne called that same week, later than I expected, close to 10 at night. I moved some things to Ted's place, he said. Ted was his brother, lived out past Ontario on a couple acres with a barn he never used for anything but storage. Just for now, until I figure out what your mother and I are actually looking at. What happened? I said. I found paperwork, he said, on the kitchen counter of all places, like she'd stopped hiding it because there wasn't a point anymore. A home equity application. $45,000 against the house. Filed 2 weeks ago before any of this came out at the party. I sat with that a second. Another number added to a pile that already didn't add up. For the boutique. For the boutique, he said. She was going to refinance our house to cover a business loan I didn't know existed, on top of a retirement account she'd already gutted. His voice had that flat, worn sound of a man who'd run out of surprised. I asked her why she never told me any of it. Not the loan, not the withdrawals, not the equity application. You know what she said? What? She said she didn't want me to worry. He laughed, short, no humor in it at all. Like worry was the problem. Like if I'd just never found out, none of it would have been real. Are you going to sign it? The equity application. No, he said. I pulled it before it went anywhere. But I'll tell you, Marissa, finding that on the counter did more to change my mind about this whole thing than watching Cole read a folder out on that lawn ever did. Why's that? Because the folder was about you, he said. This was about me. Sometimes a man doesn't move till it's his own name on the line. I didn't say anything to that. I didn't need to. He'd said the true thing himself, which was more than I'd expected out of him 3 weeks earlier, standing on a porch watching his wife hand away something that was never hers. Cole called again 2 days before the hearing. And this time his voice had a different weight to it, careful in a way I hadn't heard from him before. "I want to walk you through what's going to happen in that courtroom," he said, "so none of it catches you off guard." Okay. Her attorney will argue undue influence first. I'll respond with 3 years of trustee filings, the original trust document, and your grandfather's own attorney of record at the signing, who is not me, which matters because it means nobody can say I drafted something in my own interest. He paused. Then, assuming the judge rules the trust stands, which I expect, I read the letter. And if Chelsea testifies. Then I ask her 3 questions, Cole said. Simple ones. When did your mother first mention this to you? What exactly did she ask you to say? And why? His voice didn't rise at all. I don't need to catch your sister in a lie, Marissa. I just need the judge to watch her try to tell one. That feels cruel. It's not cruel, Cole said. Cruel was asking a 26-year-old to lie about her own grandfather to save a boutique that was already failing before any of this started. I'm just going to stand next to it so everyone can see it clearly. I looked over at my bookshelf, at Walton's photo, squinting into the sun outside that same office building years back, and thought about a folding chair he'd sat in once, watching his own daughter do this exact thing to somebody else. He knew, I said, mostly to myself. He knew, Cole agreed. That's the whole reason there's a letter. Read it to me now, I said. I don't want to hear it for the first time in a room full of people who hate me. Cole was quiet a second. I told you I'd bring it to the hearing. I'm asking you to bring it to me first, I said. Just once. Just for me. He didn't answer right away, and I could hear him weighing it. The careful man doing careful math on whether an old client's wish outweighed his own instinct for staging things exactly right. Come by the office tomorrow, he said finally. Before the hearing, just you. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Cole said. You haven't heard what's in it. Cole's office smelled like coffee that had been sitting too long on a warmer. He had the letter in a plain white envelope, no firm letterhead on the outside, just her name in handwriting I recognized from birthday cards. He wrote your name himself, Cole said, insisted on it. Said if he typed it, it wouldn't feel like him talking. I sat down across from his desk, the same chair I'd sat in 3 weeks earlier when this whole thing started making sense. He slid the envelope over. I didn't open it right away. You said you'd read it to me. I did. He picked it back up instead, like he understood I needed the distance of somebody else's voice getting through it first. He broke the seal careful, unfolded 2 pages, and started. Marissa, if you're reading this or hearing it, I'm gone, and something's happened with the apartment. I wish I could tell you I was wrong to expect that. I wasn't. Cole paused there, just a breath, then kept going. You were 6 the first time I watched your mother do this to somebody. Her own sister. A cabin that should have stayed split 2 ways ended up in one boy's name inside a year, and Deborah smiled the whole time she did it, same as she probably smiled at you. I sat in a folding chair at that table and said nothing, because I told myself it wasn't my place. That was the worst mistake of my life, and I don't say that lightly, because I buried a wife and a business partner and outlived 2 brothers. My throat went tight. I kept my eyes on Cole's hands, not his face. So I built you a wall 3 years before I figured you'd need one. Preston will have told you the terms. I'm not writing to explain them. I'm writing to tell you the part he can't put in a legal document. Don't let her hand away what's yours. Not the apartment. Not anything. Ever. For the rest of your life. Not because you're selfish for keeping it, because letting her do it doesn't save anybody. It just moves the hurt to whoever's smaller in the room. I watched it happen once already. I built this so I wouldn't watch it happen twice. Cole's voice had gone quiet by the end, not performing it, just reading it plain, the way you'd read something that mattered too much to dress up. That's it, he said. There's a line after that about the account statements, Mostly instructions for me. I won't read the rest unless you want it. No, I said. That's the part I needed. He folded the pages back along their original creases and set them down between us instead of handing them over yet, like he wanted me to have a second before I touched them myself. He wasn't a warm man, Cole said. People who knew him a little thought he was cold, actually. But he noticed everything. He noticed you dusting that photo on your shelf, probably. Same as he noticed his own daughter's hands the day she signed that cabin away. How do you know I dust it? He mentioned it, Cole said. Said you kept it too straight for somebody who claimed not to think about him much. A small, tired smile. He wasn't wrong about people, Marissa. That's the whole reason any of this holds up in front of a judge tomorrow. I finally picked the letter up myself, read it once through in my grandfather's handwriting instead of Cole's voice, and folded it into my bag. Tomorrow, I said. What time? 9 sharp, Cole said. Judge Annandale. She doesn't like theater, so don't expect one. She reads documents. That works in our favor, given what we've got. The courtroom the next morning was smaller than I'd pictured. Wood paneling gone a little dull with age, ceiling tiles water-stained in one corner, like nobody had ever bothered fixing it. My mother sat at the far table in a navy blazer I recognized, next to a lawyer I didn't. Chelsea sat 2 rows back in the gallery, arms crossed tight over her stomach like she was holding herself together with them. Deborah didn't look at me when I came in. She looked past me, at the door, like she still expected somebody else to walk through it and fix this before it started. Judge Annandale was younger than I'd expected, reading glasses pushed up into gray hair, folder already open in front of her. This is a contested trust matter, she said, without much preamble. Motion filed by respondent alleging undue influence and diminished capacity at time of signing. Petitioner's counsel, you may respond. Cole stood. Your Honor, the amendment naming Marissa Hale sole lifetime beneficiary was executed 3 years before Mr. Voss's diagnosis at the office of Halloran and Fitch, not my firm, with an independent attorney of record who is prepared to testify he found Mr. Voss lucid, specific, and, in his words, unusually clear about his reasoning. Is that attorney present? By phone, Your Honor. Mr. Halloran is 78 and doesn't drive after dark, but he's available now if the court wants him. The judge nodded to a clerk, and a minute later, a thin, papery voice came through a speaker on the bench, confirming dates, confirming a healthy man across a desk asking pointed questions about contingent beneficiaries, confirming nothing that sounded like confusion. Deborah's attorney tried anyway. Mr. Halloran, isn't it true elderly clients often present as lucid in short meetings while suffering cognitive decline that only shows in daily life? It's true of some, Halloran said. It wasn't true of Walton Voss. Man corrected my math on the exemption threshold. Twice. A couple of people in the gallery laughed, quiet, quickly swallowed. Deborah's jaw tightened. Your Honor, Cole said, given the medical and legal record, we'd ask the undue influence claim be dismissed on its face. I'll take it under advisement through the rest of the hearing, the judge said. Respondent's counsel, you indicated you have a witness on the decedent's mental state closer to signing. We do, the attorney said. Chelsea Hale. Chelsea stood up slow, smoothed her skirt down with both hands, walked to the stand like the floor might give out. She didn't look at her mother. She looked at me, just once, before she sat. Miss Hale, the attorney said, gentle, coaching gentle. You spent time with your grandfather in his last 2 years. Did you notice changes in his memory or clarity? Chelsea's hands were folded tight in her lap. She opened her mouth, closed it again. I noticed he repeated some stories, she said finally. Everybody's grandpa does that. Did he ever seem confused about who you were or who your sister was? No, Chelsea said. He always knew exactly who we were. Her voice caught a little. He used to tell us apart faster than our own mother did, honestly. The attorney's face flickered, just barely, like the answer had gone somewhere he hadn't planned for. Did your mother ask you to characterize his state a certain way for this hearing? Chelsea looked at Deborah now, straight on, for the first time since she'd sat down. She asked me to say he'd gotten confused, Chelsea said. I told her I wouldn't lie about Grandpa. Not for a couch to sleep on, not for anything. The room went quiet in that specific way a room goes quiet when somebody says the true thing nobody expected out loud. Deborah's face had gone pale, then blotchy, the kind of red that climbs a neck when there's nowhere left to put the feeling. That's not what we discussed, Deborah said, low, leaning toward her own attorney. Mrs. Hale, the judge said, not even looking up. You'll have your turn. Not now. Cole rose again. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor. I think the record speaks for itself. Chelsea stepped down and didn't go back to her seat near the gallery door. She came and sat 2 rows back on my side instead, close enough that I could hear her breathing hard, trying to hold something in. The judge looked at both tables a long moment, then at the folder in front of her. I'm prepared to rule on the capacity and influence questions, she said. But before I do, Mr. Cole, you indicated there was a written statement from the decedent you wished entered into the record. Cole reached for the envelope on the table beside him. There is, Your Honor, he said. If it pleases the court, I'd like to read it now. Judge Annandale nodded once. You may proceed. Cole opened the second half of the letter, the part he hadn't read to me in his office. Not Walton's words to me this time, his instructions to Cole. For the record, Cole said, the decedent directed his trustee to file annual accountings with the court every January, whether requested or not. 3 years of those filings are already in the clerk's file, Your Honor. Bank statements, property tax records, insurance renewals, every dollar accounted for. And why does that matter today? The judge asked. Because respondent's position requires the court to believe this trust was some quiet, informal thing, Cole said. It wasn't quiet. It was audited every year, on schedule, whether anyone was watching or not. I thought about the white envelopes, every January 3rd, like clockwork, sitting in a drawer I never opened. I'd assumed they were nothing. Turned out they were the whole proof. The judge flipped through her folder a long moment. Nobody in the gallery moved. I'm ruling from the bench, she said finally. The court finds no evidence of diminished capacity at the time of signing and no evidence of undue influence. The amendment stands. Title to the property at Sturgis Avenue remains with the Walton Voss Irrevocable Trust, Marissa Hale, sole lifetime beneficiary. She looked at Deborah's table. Respondent's petition is denied. Deborah's attorney started to rise. Your Honor, we'd like to. You'll take it up on appeal if you want, the judge said. Not today. She closed the folder. We're adjourned. Deborah didn't stand right away. She sat there with her hands flat on the table, staring at nothing, like the ruling hadn't finished landing yet. Chelsea reached over and touched her mother's shoulder, and Deborah pulled away from it, small and sharp, like even that was too much right now. Outside on the courthouse steps, the air was warmer than I expected for October. Cole caught up to me by the rail. That's the legal question settled, he said. Capacity, influence, all of it. What's left is possession. Meaning what? Meaning the trust owns it on paper, Cole said. But your sister's still living in it. We file for unlawful detainer, we get a court date, a sheriff serves it. That's the part that actually gets someone out the door. How long does that take? Depends on the docket. Could be next week, could be 3. He studied me. You look like you're already thinking about timing. Chelsea's having people over Saturday, I said. A housewarming. She sent me the invite weeks ago before any of this started. Cole went quiet a second. She invited you to a party celebrating an apartment that isn't hers. She didn't know that yet when she sent it. Well, He almost smiled, the closest I'd seen him come to it. If the filing clears in time, there's no reason the sheriff can't serve it Saturday, same as any other day. You'd do that, at a party. I'd do it wherever the paperwork says to do it, Cole said. It just so happens the paperwork and the party might land on the same afternoon. I looked back at the courthouse doors, at Deborah coming down the steps behind us, moving slower than usual, her heels loud and uneven on the stone. Do it Saturday, I said. Saturday came in gray and a little cold, the kind of Mansfield afternoon where everyone keeps their coats on, even inside. Chelsea had strung white lights along the porch railing of my own apartment, little paper lanterns down the walk, a folding table out front with a punch bowl, and a sign taped to it that said, "Welcome home Chelsea," in loopy marker letters that weren't even her handwriting. Deborah's, probably. I stood across Sturgis Avenue for a minute before I went in, just watching people carry gift bags up the steps I used to climb every night after work. My grandfather's photo was still in my bag, tucked in an inside pocket, because I hadn't been able to leave it at home that morning. Inside, the apartment looked wrong in a way I couldn't name right away. My furniture was gone. Chelsea had brought in a second-hand couch, mismatched lamps, a rug that didn't fit the room. It still smelled like my detergent, though, underneath everything else, like the walls remembered me even if the furniture didn't. "You came," Chelsea said, finding me by the kitchen doorway. She looked relieved and nervous at once, holding a plastic cup of punch she hadn't touched. "You invited me before you knew," I said. "Figured I'd honor that part." "Mom's here," she said, quieter. "I didn't ask her to come. She just showed up an hour ago and started rearranging the cheese plate." Across the room, Deborah was doing exactly that, moving crackers 2 inches to the left, smiling at guests I half recognized from around the neighborhood, playing hostess in a home that had never been hers to host. Wayne wasn't with her. I hadn't expected him to be. "She needs it more than you," Deborah had said to me weeks ago, smiling on that same porch. I could still hear it exactly the way she'd said it, easy, like she was doing me a favor by taking something from me. I stood in the kitchen doorway now and let the words sit in my head a second, turned them over. Funny thing about needing something. Chelsea never actually got to need it. She just got to borrow the appearance of it, for exactly as long as it took someone to check the paperwork. At 4:15, a car pulled up outside that wasn't anyone's guest. Through the front window, I watched Cole step out in a plain gray suit, briefcase in one hand. Behind him, a locksmith van parked at the curb, and behind that, a sheriff's cruiser, lights off, no siren, just quiet and certain the way Cole had promised it would be. Conversation in the living room didn't stop all at once. It thinned out first, guest by guest noticing the front window, until the whole room had gone half silent by the time the doorbell rang. Chelsea answered it herself, punch cup still in hand. "Can I help you?" "Chelsea Hale?" the deputy asked, polite, unhurried. "That's me." Cole stepped up beside him. "My name is Preston Cole. I represent the Walton Voss Irrevocable Trust, which holds title to this property." He didn't raise his voice at all. He didn't need to. The room had already gone still enough to hear a pin. "I have a court order here. Unlawful detainer granted this morning, directing that possession of this unit be restored to the trust's beneficiary effective today." "What?" Deborah said from somewhere behind Chelsea, her voice cracking through the quiet like something dropped. "What is this?" "This is the part where the paperwork catches up," Cole said, still to Chelsea, still calm. "The court ruled Tuesday that this property was never part of your mother's estate to give. It was held in trust for your sister 3 years before any of this started." He opened his briefcase, pulled out a single page, held it where the room could see it if it wanted to. "I'll read the operative clause, if it helps make it plain for everybody here." He didn't wait for permission. "The trustee shall hold, manage, and ultimately convey the real property located at Sturgis Avenue, solely for the benefit of Marissa Hale during her lifetime, free from claim, transfer, or encumbrance by any other party, including but not limited to the settlers' other descendants. Nobody in that living room said a word. Somebody's cup made a small sound setting down on the counter, and that was the loudest thing in the house. "That means," Cole said, folding the page back into his case, "the keys your mother handed you never belonged to her to hand. I'm sorry it's landing this way, on a day you clearly put some care into." He glanced once at the paper lanterns still strung along the porch railing outside. "That part's not your fault." The deputy stepped forward with a clipboard. "Ma'am, this is your copy of the order. You'll have 72 hours to arrange your belongings for removal." Chelsea took the paper with both hands, staring at it like it was written in a language she was only half sure she could read. Her eyes came up and found mine across the room, past a dozen guests frozen mid-drink, past her mother's face, gone the color of old paper. 72 hours, she said, mostly to herself. Deborah pushed through the small crowd toward Cole, her voice rising for the first time all afternoon. "You can't do this. Not here, not in front of people." "I did it exactly where the order says to serve it," Cole said, "which happens to be the address in question." He looked at her, steady, not unkind, not soft either. "You did the same thing once to somebody else, in front of a room full of people. Maybe you remember that better than anybody here." Deborah didn't answer. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out of it, and for the first time since I'd known her, my mother looked like a woman who had run entirely out of things to say. Deborah stood there in the middle of the ruined party, still holding half a cracker she'd been about to set down when the doorbell rang. Guests were already inching toward the door, coats going back on, the way people do when they realize they've wandered into somebody else's fight. Chelsea looked at the paper in her hand again. 72 hours, she said. "Mom, what does that mean? 72 hours? "It means we call somebody," Deborah said. "Tonight. First thing." "Call who?" Chelsea's voice cracked up a register. "The judge already ruled. This man just told a room full of people the apartment was never yours to give me." Cole didn't leave. He stood by the door, briefcase closed now, watching the way a man watches a fire he didn't start but isn't in a hurry to put out either. "There's something else," he said, "since we're all here." Deborah's head snapped toward him. "We're done." "You said what you came to say." "I did," Cole said. "But there's a second matter the court flagged while reviewing trust assets, and I think your daughter should hear it from somebody other than a bank letter." The room had mostly cleared by then, just Chelsea, Deborah, me, and a handful of guests too curious or too frozen to leave. Someone's phone buzzed in a pocket and nobody reached for it. "What second matter?" Chelsea said. Cole looked at me first, like he was asking permission. I nodded. I already knew where this went. I'd known since the recorder's office, since the file with my grandfather's handwriting notes stapled behind 3 years of bank statements he'd never mentioned to anyone but Cole. 2 years ago, your mother co-signed a business loan for your boutique, Cole said. $38,000 through Mansfield Community Bank. "I know that," Chelsea said. "I signed it too." "You signed the primary note," Cole said. "What you may not know is the payment history. 14 months of it's been covered by withdrawals from a retirement account that isn't your mother's alone." The room went very quiet again. That same quality of quiet from the courtroom, like everybody had learned the sound and was waiting for it on purpose now. "Wayne's account?" I said. It wasn't a question. I'd read the statements twice at Cole's office, numbers stepping down every month like stairs into a basement. 4,100 here, 3,800 there. A steady bleed nobody upstairs had noticed yet. Deborah's face had gone the color of the paper Chelsea was still holding. "That's not," she started. "It's a joint account," Cole said, gentle again, the same gentle he'd used reading the clause. "Meaning he'll see the withdrawals eventually. Statements come quarterly." I imagine the next one lands around the 15th. You had no right to look into that, Deborah said. I didn't go looking, Cole said. The trust's accountant flagged an unusual pattern of deposits into the boutique's business account, cross-referenced against the loan servicer. It's not detective work, it's arithmetic. Chelsea turned to her mother slow, like her body hadn't caught up to what her ears just heard. You've been paying my loan out of Dad's retirement. I was going to tell him, Deborah said, when things were stable. Stable, Chelsea repeated. Flat. The store just needed one good season, Deborah said, and her voice had that thin, fast quality people get when they're explaining something to themselves as much as anyone else. One good season, and I'd have paid it back before he even noticed. And if the apartment falls through, Cole said, which as of this afternoon it has, your daughter can't cover rent and the loan both. The loan defaults. The bank calls the balance due in full. 60 days typically under the terms I reviewed. He said it the way he'd read the trust clause, no heat in it, just fact laid flat on a table. At which point your husband's retirement account is the only asset large enough to make the bank whole. Nobody in that living room was pretending to check their phone anymore. Wayne doesn't know any of this, I said. No, Deborah said. Very quiet now. He doesn't. He's going to, Cole said. Not because I'm telling him, because a bank statement is going to tell him, whether anybody in this room wants it to or not. A woman near the door, somebody's neighbor I half recognized from block parties years back, set her punch cup down on the folding table and let herself out without a word. A few others followed, quiet, careful, the way people leave a house where the smoke alarm just started going off. Nobody wanted to be the one still standing there when it got worse. Chelsea sat down hard on the arm of the second-hand couch, the one she'd bought thinking it'd be hers for years, not days. She needed it more than you, she said, mostly to herself, like she was hearing her mother's own words land somewhere new. That's what you told her, about my apartment. It wasn't a lie, Deborah said. You did need it. I needed it because you spent Dad's retirement keeping my store alive, Chelsea said. That's not the same thing as needing an apartment, Mom. That's you covering one hole with another hole. Deborah didn't answer that. She looked at me instead, like she was searching for an ally in the one person in the room who had the least reason to give her one. I did what a mother does, she said. I tried to help her. You took what was mine to do it, I said. That's not help. That's just moving the damage around until it lands on somebody who won't fight back. You never fought for anything in your life, Deborah snapped, some old reflex kicking back in even now. Chelsea needed rescuing. You never needed anybody. I didn't need rescuing, I said. I needed you to leave what wasn't yours alone. That's a pretty low bar, Mom. You still missed it. Cole cleared his throat, not unkind, just moving the room along. I'll leave the paperwork with counsel of your choosing, he said to Deborah. The trust's position is filed. The bank matter isn't ours to pursue, but I'd expect they'll be in touch with you directly once the next statement posts. He picked up his case, nodded once to Chelsea, and let himself out past the last of the guests still gathering coats in the hallway. Through the front window, I watched the sheriff's cruiser pull away first. No lights, no hurry, like it had all the time in the world because the hard part was already done. The locksmith van went next. By the time Cole's car pulled off Sturgis Avenue, the porch lanterns were still lit, blinking a little in the wind. Welcome home. Chelsea still taped crooked to a folding table nobody was going to need again. Chelsea sat with the notice in her lap a long time. Deborah stood by the kitchen doorway, arms crossed the exact way Chelsea's had been crossed on the courthouse gallery steps, like the habit had just gotten passed down without either of them noticing. I need you to leave, Chelsea said finally, to her mother, not to me. Chelsea, not forever, Chelsea said, just tonight. I need to think, and I can't do it with you standing there waiting for me to say it's okay. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It's not okay, Mom. None of this is okay. Deborah looked at me one more time on her way out, like she expected me to soften something on her behalf. I didn't. I'd spent 3 weeks being quiet while she rearranged my life like furniture. I wasn't going to spend the walk to her car being kind about it, too. She left without her coat. Somebody, one of the last guests still lingering by the door, picked it up off the rack and carried it out after her, more out of habit than kindness. I stayed and helped Chelsea start boxing up the couch cushions, the mismatched lamps, all the small things she'd bought to make a place feel like hers in a hurry. Neither of us talked much. At one point, she stopped, holding a picture frame with a photo of the two of us as kids, years before any of this, and just looked at it a long while. I really didn't know, she said, about the trust, about any of it. I believe you, I said, and I did. Chelsea had told the truth on that witness stand when it would have been easier not to. That counted for something, even now, even standing in the wreckage of a party thrown in my own living room. What happens to me now, she said. The store, the loan, Dad. I don't know, I said. That part's not mine to fix. She nodded, slow, wiped under one eye with the back of her wrist, and went back to packing. I let myself out a little after 7, walked down the porch steps, past the paper lantern still strung along the railing, past the folding table with its sign gone limp in the evening damp. Sturgis Avenue was quiet the way it always was this time of night, porch lights coming on one by one down the block, somebody's dog barking twice and settling. I had the key back in my coat pocket. Cole had handed it to me outside the courthouse 2 days ago, plain brass, freshly cut like it was nothing at all. I hadn't used it yet. I'd been waiting, without really deciding to wait, for a moment that felt like mine to use it in. This felt close enough. The key turned soft in the lock, one click, like it had been waiting on me the whole time and not the other way around. I stepped into my own apartment for the first time in what felt like months, even though it had only been weeks. The couch was gone. Chelsea's couch, I mean. Somebody had already come through with a truck, taking the mismatched lamps and the rug that never fit. What was left was mine again. My old reading chair pushed into a corner where it didn't belong. A box of her things by the door, taped shut, my name written on it in Chelsea's handwriting. Marissa, sorry. I didn't open it that night. I just stood in the kitchen a long minute, listening to the refrigerator hum, the sound so familiar it almost hurt. On the counter, propped against the toaster where I'd left it that morning 3 years ago, still sat Walton's letter. I'd read it so many times the fold lines had gone soft as cloth. Don't let her hand away what's yours. 6 words. He'd known his own daughter that well. He'd built a trust around one sentence and made sure a lawyer would say it out loud when it mattered. It mattered today. I made coffee I didn't drink and went to bed in my own room, under my own light fixture, and slept the kind of sleep you don't know you're missing until you get it back. Wayne showed up 8 days later. No call first, just a knock, 3 raps, careful, like he wasn't sure he still had the right to knock at all. I opened the door and there he was, holding a manila folder against his chest the way you'd hold something you were scared to drop. Marissa. He said my name like he was checking it still worked. Can I come in? Of course. I stepped back. He'd always been quiet, Wayne. Quieter than Deborah by a mile. He sat on the edge of my reading chair like he didn't trust the whole thing to hold him. I got the statement, he said, from the retirement account. 4th quarter. He set the folder on the coffee table but didn't open it. $41,600. Gone. Over 14 months. I know, I said. I'm sorry you found out that way. You knew. Not angry, just tired. How long have you known? Since the day Cole pulled the loan records. Before Chelsea's party. Wayne nodded slow, staring at a spot on my carpet like it had an answer written on it. $38,000 for the store, he said. Deb told me it was covered. She told me the bank had approved a deferment. He laughed, short and flat, no humor in it at all. There was no deferment. There was just her, moving money out of an account with my name on it too, hoping I wouldn't check. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I already did it," he said. "I called the bank Tuesday, talked to somebody in their commercial lending office. The loan's in default as of this month. They're calling the balance due in full, 38,000 plus fees." He looked up at me. "Chelsea's going to lose the store, Marissa. I think she already knows it." I didn't say anything to that. There wasn't a version of it that needed my opinion attached. "I moved out," Wayne said. 3 days ago. I'm staying at my brother's until I figure out what comes next." He turned the folder over once in his hands, not opening it, like he just needed something to hold. "I'm 61 years old. I was 6 years from retiring. I'm sorry, Wayne." And I was. He'd never been part of what Deborah did to me. He'd just been standing close enough to get hit by the same swing. "She said she was helping Chelsea," he said. "She said that about every single thing she's ever done." Helping. Like the word means something different when she says it. "It usually means somebody else is about to pay for it," I said. Wayne looked at me a long moment, and something in his face agreed with that, even though he didn't say so out loud. He stood up, folder still unopened, like he'd only needed to say the numbers to somebody who'd believe him without an argument. "I should go," he said. "I just wanted you to hear it from me. Not from her, spun into something else. Thank you for that." At the door, he stopped, hand on the frame. "Your grandfather," he said, "Walton. He always said your mother would find a way to lose everything trying to fix one thing for Chelsea." He shook his head. "I used to think that was harsh. Guess he'd been watching a lot longer than I had." He let himself out. I watched him walk down the porch steps to his car, shoulders low, a man carrying something he hadn't asked for and couldn't put down. I heard the rest of it in pieces over the following weeks, the way you hear about a storm that's already passed somewhere else. Chelsea closed the boutique before the bank could force it. She sold the inventory at cost, paid down what she could, and moved into a one-bedroom off Park Avenue West, the cheap side, month to month. She called me twice. Both times she just wanted someone to talk to who wasn't measuring her. "I keep thinking there was a version where I said no to her," Chelsea told me once, over the phone, her voice thin with something that wasn't quite crying. "No, Mom, I don't need your husband's retirement. No, Mom, I don't need my sister's apartment. I don't think I ever said no to her in my whole life." "You're saying it now," I said. "Feels a little late." "Feels exactly on time to me," I said, and I meant it. Late is still a direction. Deborah had never once turned around at all. Deborah called me 4 times that same month. I let 3 go to voicemail. The 4th, I picked up, mostly out of a curiosity I wasn't proud of. "I want to explain myself," she said. "No hello first, just straight into it. You never let me explain." "I don't need an explanation, Mom. I read the numbers. They explain themselves. I was trying to hold this family together." "You were trying to hold Chelsea together," I said. "That's not the same thing, and you've never once seen the difference." I kept my voice even. "I don't get loud. I get precise, and precise was all this call needed. You took my home to cover a debt you didn't want Wayne to see. That's not family. That's just moving your mess onto somebody who wouldn't fight back." She was quiet a second. "I didn't think you'd fight back," she said, and there was something almost like wonder in it, like I'd surprised her simply by being a person with a limit. "I know," I said. "That was always the whole plan, wasn't it? I didn't hang up angry. I didn't need to. I just said goodbye, plain, the way you'd end a call with somebody you used to know, and set the phone down on the counter next to Walton's letter." Cole called a week after that, his voice doing that same even thing it always did, like nothing in the world could rush him. County recorded the amended title Monday, he said. Trust property, sole beneficiary, clean. No liens, no encumbrances. Your grandfather's language is about as airtight as language gets. Thank you, Preston. Don't thank me, he said. He did the work. 3 years before he died, sitting in my office telling me exactly what his own daughter was capable of. I just followed the instructions. A pause. There's a final letter, by the way. Sealed one, meant for after everything's settled. He wrote it the same week he set up the trust. I already have his letter. Not that one, Cole said. That one's for right after. This one's for now. He mailed it 2 days later. Plain white envelope, no return address, my name in a lawyer's careful print on the front, the way the January envelopes had always come. I sat at my kitchen table and opened it slow, the way you open something you already suspect will matter. Marissa, if you're reading this, it means somebody tried to take what was yours and you didn't let them. That's all I ever wanted for you. Not the apartment. That. Love, Grandpa Walton. I read it twice. Then I got a small frame from the drawer in the hallway, the one I never used for anything, and I put it on the counter next to the toaster, right where the first letter used to sit. That evening, I made dinner in my own kitchen, plates I'd bought myself, a window that looked out onto Sturgis Avenue the way it always had, porch lights coming on early the way they do in late fall. My phone buzzed once, a message from Chelsea, a photo of her new apartment, small, plain, entirely hers. No caption. I sent back a single line. It's a start. I turned the key in my own lock one more time before bed, just to hear it catch, just to feel it give the way it was always supposed to. My name is Marissa Hale. I'm 29 years old. I don't get loud. I never did. I just got the paperwork right. Marissa answered on the second ring, standing at gate C14 in Dayton, boarding group already called. A vendor rep from a surgical supply company was arguing that a $2,850 late fee was contractual. It wasn't. She'd read the contract twice on the flight out. Section 9 caps late fees at 1% of the invoice, she said, calm, even, watching the gate agent scan the line down. Your invoice was $41,000. Run the math again. There was a pause. Keys clicking somewhere in Toledo or Cincinnati or wherever he sat. You're right, he said. I'll adjust it. Thank you, she said, and hung up and boarded her flight home to Mansfield like nothing in her life had ever gone sideways at all. That was the job. Catch the number that didn't add up before anybody signed off on it. She was good at it. She'd been good at it long before her mother ever touched a lock that wasn't hers. Cole called 4 days later, a Tuesday, while she was unloading groceries onto the counter next to Walton's letter in its little frame. I've got 2 things, he said. One's closed. One's new. Start with closed, she said. The bank's compliance office finished its review on the retirement account withdrawals, Cole said. 14 months, $41,600 moved out in installments under $3,000 at a time. Small enough not to trigger an automatic flag. Not small enough to stay hidden once somebody actually looked. Wayne looked, she said. Wayne looked, Cole said. The bank's calling it an unauthorized joint account transfer pattern. There's a formal file now, a case number. Wayne's attorney is using it to separate his name from any future liability tied to Deborah's accounts. So he's protected, Marissa said. Going forward, yes, Cole said. Not for what already happened. That part's gone. Marissa set a bag of rice down slow, listening to the quiet hum of her own refrigerator, the sound still new enough to notice. And the other thing, she said. The other thing's not about your mother at all, Cole said, and something in his voice shifted, lighter, like he'd been saving it. You remember Ray Dunmore. Should I? Your grandfather's lodge brother, Cole said. 40 years. Sat 2 pews behind Walton at every funeral, every wedding, Every christening in this county since before you were born. He came into my office last week. Okay, Marissa said, drawing it out, waiting. He's got a granddaughter, Cole said. Teresa, 26, works 2 jobs, rents a duplex off Straub Road that Ray helped her put a down payment on 3 years back. Only the deed's in his son's name, not hers. His son's about to divorce, and the wife's lawyer is already circling that duplex like it's community property. That's not community property if Ray put the money in, Marissa said. No, Cole said, but nobody wrote that down anywhere. Ray heard what happened to you. Somebody at the lodge mentioned it, I don't even know who, and he sat in my office and said, I don't want my granddaughter finding out what she owns from a locksmith on her own porch. Marissa didn't say anything for a second. She just stood there with a bag of rice in one hand. So, what did you tell him? She said. I told him what I told your grandfather 3 years before he died, Cole said. Put it in a trust. Name her the beneficiary. Make sure there's exactly one person on earth who can move that property, and it isn't a son going through a divorce, and it isn't anybody's mother deciding somebody needs it more. He's doing it. Filed this morning, Cole said. County recorder logged it an hour ago. Teresa doesn't even know yet. Ray wants to tell her himself, this weekend, over dinner. Marissa looked at the little frame on her counter, Walton's 6 words behind glass, and thought about a woman named Teresa she'd never met, 26 years old, about to find out a duplex on Straub Road belonged to her and nobody else. Free and clear, no smiling relative allowed to hand it to someone who needed it more. Tell Ray I said thank you, she said, for doing it now instead of after. I will, Cole said. There's no after when you do it now. That's rather the point of the thing. They talked another minute about nothing, the weather turning, a filing deadline on some unrelated trust matter, and then he let her go. Marissa finished putting the groceries away. She thought about calling Chelsea, decided against it, not out of anything cold, just because there wasn't anything new to say that the last few calls hadn't already said. Chelsea was building something small and hers on Park Avenue West. That would take the time it took. Nobody could hand her the finished version of that any faster than she was already making it happen. She thought about Deborah, too, briefly, the way you think about weather in a city you used to live in. Not with heat, just an awareness that it was happening somewhere, to someone who used to be close to her, and that it would keep happening whether she watched it or not. She poured a glass of water and stood at the window, looking out over Sturgis Avenue. Porch lights coming on early now that the days were shortening. Somebody 2 doors down raking leaves into a paper bag that kept tearing at the bottom. Her phone buzzed. A text from Cole, short, no explanation needed. Teresa's dinner is Saturday. Ray asked me to be there when he tells her. Thought you'd want to know it's happening. She typed back 3 words. Good. Tell her. Then she set the phone down and went back to her evening, the ordinary kind, dishes and a show she wasn't really watching and a load of laundry she kept meaning to switch over. It struck her, somewhere in the middle of folding a towel, that this was the whole prize, not a courtroom moment. Not even the party on Chelsea's porch with the sheriff's cruiser pulling away. Just this. An evening that belonged entirely to her, nobody's key working in her lock but her own, nobody standing in her kitchen doorway, waiting for her to make a decision easier for somebody else. She thought about her grandfather sitting in Cole's office 3 years before he died, an old man with a bad hip and a long memory, writing 6 words down because he'd watched his own daughter strip a cabin from her sister once and hand it to a nephew. Everyone liked better, and he'd decided, quietly, years in advance, that it wasn't going to happen again to somebody he loved. He hadn't lived to see it work. He'd trusted a lawyer and a locked drawer and a filing cabinet to do it for him. It had worked. Saturday came and went the way ordinary Saturdays do. Marissa spent the morning at the farmer's market on 4th Street, bought tomatoes she didn't need, talked to a man selling honey about nothing important. In the afternoon, she drove out past Straub Road on an errand that didn't require it, just to see the duplex from the outside, porch light on, a car in the driveway she didn't recognize, curtains drawn against the early dark. She didn't stop. She didn't need to. Somewhere behind that door, a girl named Teresa was probably hearing 4 sentences that would change what she thought she owned. The same 4 sentences Marissa had heard from Cole on her own porch weeks back, plain and dry and completely undeniable. She drove home along Park Avenue, past the block where Chelsea's new building sat, lights on in a second-floor window, and kept going without slowing down. Some doors you don't need to knock on to know good things are happening behind them. That night, she sat at her kitchen table with the last of the tomatoes sliced onto a plate, salt, nothing fancy, and looked at Walton's letter in its frame, the way she'd started looking at it most evenings now, not searching it for new meaning, just glad it was there. Don't let her hand away what's yours. He'd said it about her. It turned out to be bigger than that. It turned out to be the kind of sentence that could sit in a filing cabinet for 3 years and then walk itself, quietly, into somebody else's kitchen on Straub Road, into somebody else's name on a deed, into a Saturday dinner where a grandfather finally said the thing out loud instead of waiting for a lawyer to say it after he was gone. My name is Marissa Hale. I audit contracts for a living, catch the number that doesn't add up before anybody signs off on it. I did that this year for a vendor in Toledo. I did it for myself once, on my own front porch, and I didn't even have to raise my voice to do it. A locksmith somewhere in Mansfield was cutting Teresa Dunmore a set of keys with her own name finally behind them. On Sturgis Avenue, mine still turned exactly the way it always had,